you. Let's make this. We need to make. Okay, that's done. We can. God damn it. Okay, yes. Then we do this. Yes, okay. We can start with what do we say? Formula 3. When Beganovic succeeded to be P1. Pole position in the qualifying. Really good start for him. And hopefully this will lead to an amazing win for him. Then anything interesting you can say? I mean, Flourish at 2025. Less, maybe. Good for her. But hopefully she will do like she always do, like get in position in the start and maybe in the race. But that I will say is probably only two people I will say I care about. So Flourish and Beganovic. Then we have Formula 2. And I think someone else got pole position. I have not heard if anything why Borteleto is up there, but I don't say no to that. I mean, it's fun to see him being up there. Then where do we have? Is that? Okay, that's it. So this is the Japan, sponsored by Toyota. So it's P5. A good start for both the last champion winning Formula 3 and the Super Formula champion. And then more fun. We have Antonelli and Behrman. Both also in Prima 79-18. This is a really bad start for these two rookies. I mean, this is Mercedes maybe copium hope. And maybe Ferrari's copium hope. Yeah. Is anything interesting to... I mean, Sullivan. I think he's in the Williams. He should be. So that's also fun for him to be there. Maybe we could care about him. But probably not. Yeah, and maybe Marty also. And the Minecraft music. Okay. Well, tomorrow is the sprint race for Formula 3 and Formula 2. But the more interesting thing is the Formula 3 stuff. No, Formula 1 stuff. So let's go to what happened in Formula 3. Formula 1, oh my god. Okay, Formula 3 more interesting before because of Beganovic, but Formula 1. Let's see if it is some Mercedes copium. Let's hear from the P1. Our reaction of the confusing Bahrain GP practice.
Our reaction to
and also we will be starting the mining out for just some minutes until all the clips have been watched, and then it will be more tomorrow.
Practice for the Bahrain Grand Prix. The official 2024 Formula 1 season has begun. We have had our first proper session. Let's start with FP1 then, shall we? And reflect on it a little bit. It's not a representative session. It's done in the soaring heat of daytime Bahrain. But, you know, we're going to say that Daniel Ricciardo was, of course, fastest in the RB V-Carb Racing Bulls. What? Apparently now it's RB or Racing Bulls. People saying one of those
people saying RB, but I'm just like, oh no, because I tweeted it earlier saying RB, and then everyone was like, oh, I thought you meant Red Bull. It's just like,
it is RB. The fuck is wrong with you?
Oh, I just want VCAB to catch on, but I don't think it's going to, sadly.
No, I don't think it is either. But
it is for me
because he was on
so
the
easy.
softs. The
Visa Cash App RB Formula 1 team.
Barons also went on the softs, as did Yuki Tsunoda. But then that pack below that, it was very, very close with the medium runners, which was, I guess, again, it was FP1. You're like, no, they're not probably pushing, or they're just doing some aero rake testing or whatever.
It's funny because when Max went fastest, everyone was like, championship over, and then as soon as it got close again, it was like, oh, there's
well, we were doing a Twitch watch along, and I literally, when Max went fastest by 0.6 of a second, I left the room and started doing some voodoo stuff with this particular Red Bull that I have to try and slow it down. But apparently it's worked since then, because we've got a lot to talk about. Question from Ed Smalen. If VCAR performs well, how long will it take for other teams to start whining about it? I don't think
McLaren is already doing that, so probably not far off.
They're going to be as good as maybe we're all excited about. I think, Danny Rick getting the headlines. The last time he topped a session was Monza 2021 and all this sort of stuff, and excitement building. But realistically, the soft tyre is 1.2 seconds quicker than the mediums, and he topped the timing sheets by like 0.3. It was nothing.
What was interesting though is the fact that the V carbs were basically battling McLaren, who also did the softs when they did those runs, and there was part of me that thought,
yes,
my word, because Zach Brown is one of the people that have been the most vocal about how he doesn't think it's fair and stuff. So very interesting, but again, like as is always the case in Bahrain, it's such different conditions in FP1 to the rest of the session. Even if you take out the fact that like you say, people were running softs, people were running mediums, it's still the fact that the conditions are nothing like we're going to get into qualifying and even the race.
Now, before we dive into any more and go to free practice 2, I've got 2 shout outs. Okay, so listen up. First and foremost, I never ask for you to subscribe, but we really want to get to 500,000 subscribers. That's such a beautiful, gorgeous number. So please, if you want to come along with us on this adventure throughout this weekend and this whole season and future seasons, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd love to have you here as part of the P1 family. And secondly, my second shout out is thank you, McLaren, for this lovely gift box set, which included the jumper, and you got a hoodie, didn't you, Tommy, to kind of celebrate DTS and the upcoming Formula 1 season. So thank you so much, McLaren. It's a very lovely jumper. And thirdly, actually, there's another shout out. P1 live show tickets.
No, I died. Damn it. Why do you need to be so much water here? Come on, let me skip. Skip!
P1 live show tickets are available. We'd love to see you in the middle of April, and it looks like we're going to get the greatest season of all time in Formula One. So what better than to come to a live show where you can meet fellow Formula One fans and ourselves and have a great time. So yeah, link will be in the description for that as well, or anywhere on social media, just on our link tree. Right, let's get into free practice 2 then, shall we? Oh my God. So free practice 1, Tommy, we're like, yeah, whatever. Free practice 2 is known as the representative session. This is the one where it is the most like qualifying in the race, because it's done as it goes into night time. It's cooler, it's faster. This was the session for teams to do their low fuel quali sims. And what did we get? A Mercedes 1-2. How's that biggest flop coming along, Tommy?
Yeah, I know. What's amusing is how like everyone's so hyped, and if you at this order essentially, and if you put that Verstappen would be first, Perez second by 2/10, and they were 3/10 clear, the field would all be saying it's over. What a rubbish season we're about to have. But the fact that what a difference time makes that Mercedes 1-2, and we're all hyped about it.
That's so true, isn't it?
It's
question from P1 Patreon member D Mystic. Are Mercedes back?
No.
Okay, let's dive into these times a little bit
So much copium.
more closely. Haas have looked washed since the moment they rolled out of the garage for 2024. And Nico Hulkenberg's managed to thrust himself up to P7 in that Haas. The literal team principal has said that they're going to be at the back.
Wait, you don't think that Haas are 4/100th slower than Red Bull? No.
Let me finish my point, Tom Bellingham, without your sarcasm. But I think that is probably the biggest indicator for those times. Hardly anything, because of the fact their own team, unless Haas have rolled out this car that they're hoping was good, and it actually is much better than the team principal ever wished for, and they're actually decent. I think it's more the first theory that I came up with, that Haas are still reasonably washed. But then, look, we'll see. Are Mercedes back?
No.
God knows. It's a good sign that at least they will fight in the sort of second, third fastest team area. Fernando Alonso as well, just thrusting himself into the mix as he does. It's too early to say, because I really don't want my head on the end of a stake, not the car, an actual stake. Because I've said that Mercedes
on a stake. I mean, let's not forget Mercedes were that team that were, they've done this many times before. I think it was even 2020 when they weren't very good. They love to top a Friday practice session. So we have seen it before, but there's hope, because we all thought that Red Bull, and they still could be, a million miles ahead. But yeah, it's certainly a lot more of an interesting scenario going into tomorrow, because it was exciting to see it changing constantly throughout the day.
Next question from Space Manly. How long until Red Bull decides to crush our hopes and dreams? Look, I'm more optimistic than I was previous. If Max was like second and Perez fourth, just pack your bags. It's done. But Max down in 6th, Perez down in 10th. It's kind of at the level where I'm like, would Max genuinely want... Because Max is Max. He will go as fast as he wants, whenever he wants. And I feel as though there are some struggles there. We saw it. Max was saying in free practice that the car was bleak, and he wasn't happy with the car, and I don't feel like there was many positive sentiments coming from either side of the garage in Red Bull. So I think there are some struggles, and look, they've brought a whole new concept to that Red Bull racing car. This is not the same car as they had last year, and that was a risk that they have potentially taken. I'm going to be eating my words when they're on pole by a second tomorrow, but right now, yeah, they might well be struggling. I'm more leaning, and when I say more, 80% leaning towards that they will crush our hopes and dreams, but 20%, that was 2% before free practice 2. So it's a bigger window of hopium, yes.
I don't think there's any way that it wasn't genuine, the stuff that Max was saying about, the fact that he's struggling and things like that, because they want to understand this new concept. And even if Max is ahead of everyone, I think he even was at that point when he was complaining that the car wasn't very good, just shows that he knows what that car can deliver. So there's more potential there, but certainly made it a lot more interesting because it did look like they were going to be miles ahead, and even if they do, perhaps I think they were talking about how they were doing a long run during that session, and they looked very, very good. But maybe, you know, their quali pace again, because let's not forget last year Max wasn't on pole every single race. It was a bit more close in that sense, and that does make the racing a bit more interesting when, you know, we've seen teams dominate in the past, but they normally dominate from pole position. So if it is close in qualifying and they can't run away with it in qualifying, it makes it a lot more exciting, at least for the racing. So yeah, there's a lot more hope, I think, for fans than they thought at the start of the day.
Yeah, and we thought coming into this that it'd be Ferrari that would probably be the team to take a pole position in Bahrain, and Carlos up in fourth, you know, reasonable time. Charles Leclerc, did he fancy ever getting a clean run for a lap ever? Like, that man was either locking up or finding some kind of traffic on the apex of turn one or into the downhill double left-hander. It was a difficult session, I think, for Charles to get a lap together. Another driver as well that struggled was Lando Norris, trying to get a lap together. He literally finished last of everybody because he aborted his laps that he was trying to do. I'm hoping this isn't foreshadowing Lando's season this year, where they have a good car and he does make these mistakes, because of course, you know, you look back to last year, there were moments that, you know, were fantastic opportunities for the race had he hooked up qualifying. So yeah, we will have to wait and see. But McLaren
this year
not
will
looking as bad
as
some people might have thought they were looking at certain times. So we'll see. P1 Patreon member Ruben Nuss. With FP2 being representative times, what teams do you think are sandbagging, if not all of them?
In terms of
Mercedes have removed all the sand I have in the car, and they also stay closer to the ground so they can do a fire on the car.
sandbagging, it's, you know, impossible to say at the moment because I don't think the field is going to be this spread out. Like Lando is not going to be 2.2 seconds off the pace. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But the thing is, Red Bull, there's a lot of talk that they've not whacked their engine up yet, but we will just never know until we get to qualifying, and that is the beauty of the first race.
I think when you actually look at the classification of FP2, it looks roughly okay, apart from Red Bull being the outliers. Yeah, I think Red Bull are the only outlier in terms of when you look at the performance, you go, all right, yeah, Sauber down there. Alpine, again, I mean, for any Alpine fans out there, you know, you're going to be quite worried, I think, with the 16th and 18th in FP2, and you would hope that they are also not fully whacking up their engines, but they've not looked great since the start of 2024 either, really. So we will have to wait and see. But I think generally that order doesn't look too good. Crazy in terms of, you've got an RB up in P2 or anything like that. It looks relatively normal. And that sums it up. We are less than 24 hours away from actual qualifying, seeing actual cars going fast without sandbags on. Will Red Bull be on pole by a minute, or will we see an exciting grid for Saturday's race? Thank you so much, everybody. Lots of love, and we'll see you soon. And remember, Twitch as well. We'll be live on Twitch for qualifying and the race. Bye!
Bye!
No, bye. See? Okay, that was their copium on Mercedes. I mean, we've seen a lot from Red Bull. Max don't like anything with his car after practice, and then in qualifying the car is somehow good again. So I don't have any to say. I believe they will have a good car, but let's see from maybe more an expert in the field, Peter Windsor.
Well, as the two Mercedes drivers said ad nauseum after FP2 in Bahrain, we
True.
shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. But nonetheless, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell 1-2 at the end of first practice for the first Grand Prix of 2024. Not bad for Mercedes. Having said all of that, of course, there are mitigating circumstances. Max Verstappen didn't really get a lap in. Lando Norris was P20, would you believe? He didn't get a quick lap in either. The real emphasis in that second session was on the long runs, and we'll get onto those in a millisecond. But I have been saying in recent live streams, when people have asked how I thought Lewis would go in 2024, this being a really unusual season for him because he's already announced he's going to Ferrari, as if you didn't know, in 2025, and he's got to race the year with George and with the team and do the best he possibly can this season. I have said that I thought he would be super relaxed and probably quicker and better than ever because all the pressure's off. It all began, of course, at Abu Dhabi 21, possibly the worst travesty of sporting justice we've seen in a long time. That isn't in any way
The most beautiful thing ever. Hashtag Bahrain 2021 hype train.
to detract from Max Verstappen's World Championship. It's that specific
Abu Dhabi.
day what Lewis Hamilton lost in Abu Dhabi 21. And I did say after that race that I thought
Beautiful.
it was only a matter of time before he would either retire or go to another team, and here he is going to Ferrari. But I think now that weight of Abu Dhabi is off his shoulders. He's made his decision, and of course now he's only thinking about the future, about that red car. In the meantime, he's just enjoying his racing. Win, lose or draw, he's going to be relaxed, he's going to be enjoying it. And it looked that way today, driving beautifully in the new Mercedes, very relaxed, very calm, brilliant through turns 9 and 10, as he always has been, ever since he was in F2 around Bahrain. And just great to watch. Just great to watch Lewis going quick and then go quicker still on his second set of soft tyres right at the beginning of FP2.
It's
And for the
boring.
Mercedes team in general, what a great fillip for them. George Russell just behind Lewis, which is exactly how Lewis would like it to be. I'm sure that's needled George a little bit. It'll be really interesting to see how that pans out. So let's just have a quick look at how they did finish at the end of FP2. All those times on soft tyres right at the beginning of that evening session. And you can see there were a lot of quick runners who didn't really get in a lap or had some drama going on. Lando Norris foremost amongst those down in P20, but he did a really good long run. We'll get onto that in a second. And you can see also that Max Verstappen didn't really get a great lap either. 30.851, that's half a second away from Lewis Hamilton, but look at that. Nico Hülkenberg 30.885, so something's not quite right there. Having said that, pleased to see the Haas going reasonably well, a lot better than some of their other midfield contenders. Quite a lot of talk about Haas struggling, but as I thought, with good management there now, calm management, both drivers looking pretty good in the car, so that was nice to see. Whether that continues or not, of course, is another matter. So George Russell P2, so Mercedes 1-2, as I say. Fernando Alonso was quickest on the medium tyre in FP1 today, P3 in the afternoon, in the evening session, so good, promising day for Aston Martin. And then Carlos Sainz, 30.7 for Ferrari. Ferrari looking very good on full tanks, and both drivers looking reasonably good on the performance runs as well. Oscar Piastri 30.7, so McLaren's certainly in there as well. Oscar driving beautifully, as I said before, again through 9 and 10. It's very difficult to distinguish between him and Lewis and Max and Charles. He's looking that good through there, really difficult section of road. Nico Hülkenberg, as I say, 30.8, very good for him. Then Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Charles Leclerc didn't get a lap in either, 31.113. A little bit frenetic his driving today, but I'm sure he'll relax going into the weekend. Well, it isn't actually, it's Friday and then into Saturday, isn't it? And Sergio Perez at 31.1, same sort of time as Charles Leclerc. So we shouldn't read too much into all of that. The real substance of the day was later in FP2 when they went out again on soft tyres, because the ambient had dropped quite a lot in the evening, as it does in Bahrain, and the wind had dropped as well. Quite a gusty wind in FP1 made life quite difficult for a lot of teams. And FP2 we saw some impressive long runs. So let's have a look at how that performance of Mercedes translated into long runs, into the fuel runs, and indeed into race conditions. So Lewis Hamilton started with the 36.6, and he's in the high 36s, and then he goes to the low 37s, and he's doing 37.1, 37.4 by the end of the run. George starts in the high 36s as well, and about the same sort of pattern, 37.1, 37.5, 37.6, 37.3. So mirroring really what Lewis is doing with that car. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, like Lewis, beginning in the mid 36s, but then he does a 36.5, 36.4, 36.6, And there's no tendency there towards a 37. Look at that, 36.6, 36.7, 39. That's a slow lap. He's getting the tyres back again, 42.0, then another 36.6. So when the two Mercedes drivers say after FP2, as they were, we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves, and the Red Bull looks really good on the long runs, that's exactly what they're talking about. Those consistent mid-36s that Max Verstappen's able to stitch together in that car, really, really impressive. Charles Leclerc, let's have a look at where Ferrari are now, because I suggested after testing that Ferrari would be focusing on performance runs, trying to get to the front of the grid, trying to be on the pole, and then see how they can perhaps dictate the race from there. So they're doing 37.2. They're starting a bit slower even than Mercedes, 37.2, 37.2. Then they're down to the mid-36s and back to the early 37s. So by halfway through the run, 2/3 of the way through the run, they're actually going quicker than Mercedes. So Ferrari will be quite pleased about that. They probably feel they haven't got quite enough performance out of the car yet, but Charles Leclerc didn't get in a perfect lap, and Carlos Sainz, and I don't have his runs up there, but he was really quick as well. So not a bad day at all for Ferrari. Aston Martin with Fernando Alonso, high 36s when the tyres are new, moving to 37s and then to mid 37s at the back end of the run. So behind Mercedes, behind Ferrari, but how do they compare with McLaren? Let's have a look at Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Lando, P20, so I'm sure not many people were actually watching what times he was doing with fuel in the car. But high 36, 36.9, 36.8, mid 37s, then back to 36s again, and very low 37s. So on the basis of that, you got to say they're right there with Mercedes. That's very similar to the Mercedes runs, and Oscar Piastri backing that up, a mid 36, 36.5 to start. That's a Max Verstappen type lap. 36.8, he's doing 4 laps in the 36s, and he does a low 37, 2:37.3s, consistent there, 37.2, and then uniquely switched to mediums right at the end, probably to do the practice start, but he did a 37.1 on that. So yeah, Max looking really good. Haven't got Sergio Perez in there either, but he was a shade, well, more than a shade slower than Max. But Red Bull looking very good on the long runs, and of course it'll be interesting to see tomorrow what will happen when they do take fuel out of the car. But it all began in a relatively straightforward way, as you would expect after 3 days of testing. It sounds quite luxurious, but in reality, of course, those were the only 3 days we're going to see all year. But in terms of the old days, that's about what they used to do before every Grand Prix. Hence, there was no real pattern to what was going on in FP1. Most of the runners ran medium tyres to get the car sorted and then kept the mediums on, new, used sets to do reasonably long runs with fuel in the car towards the end. We'll have a look at those now. But a few of the runners did run soft tyres, notably the two McLaren drivers and the two Visa Cash App drivers. The quickest of those four was Daniel Ricciardo, which is good for his ego, of course, a little bit quicker than Yuki Tsunoda. And I should point out that Lando Norris then kept the soft tyres on his car for the long runs. McLaren doing a back-to-back, I guess, between the soft and the medium. But let's have a look then and see what the key runners did in those long runs towards the end of FP1. Max Verstappen, pretty good run there, very typically consistent, 37.6, 37.5, 37.5. So we're talking about mid-37s for Max. But Sergio Perez perhaps giving an indication that the Red Bull isn't the easiest car to drive at the moment. Just got into the 37s, in his case 37.9. So Max making it look relatively calm at Red Bull. But if you're looking at the Perez times, you'd be thinking, wow, the opposition have caught up. George Russell did a lot of laps and looked pretty good on medium tyres, 38.0, 38.0. But you can see there the difference between George and Max. But you've got to say at this stage, he looks to have the comfortable edge over Sergio Perez. Lewis Hamilton didn't do quite as many laps, came in at the end, did one of those runs where he came into the pits and then went out again, but just about on a par with George, low 30, 37.9, high 37s, low 38s. Charles Leclerc really quick in the Ferrari, I thought. Looked pretty edgy as well, but very impressive in the Ferrari. It looked as if they wanted him to really lean on the tyres on the first push lap out of the pits, which he did with that 36.7. Very impressive to see how the tyres would react to that. That may be, for example, the opening lap of the race. And then he's doing 38.0 back to 37.7, 37.4. So very good run by Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz not pushing the tyres as hard, but look at the times he's doing, 37.8, 37.2, 37.6, 37.5. So that's right there with Red Bull, Max Verstappen. That's what you could have said at the end of FP1, looking very good. And then the two McLarens doing that back-to-back between the medium and the soft. Lando Norris starting off very quickly, as you'd expect, 37.3 on the soft, 37.5, and then ending up in the 39. So that tyre going off pretty comprehensively quite quickly. And Oscar Piastri putting in a lot of laps in the mid-38s. That'll be disappointing for them, because that shows there's a bit of a gap now between McLaren and Mercedes, which certainly wasn't the case at the end of 2023. We didn't really see Fernando Alonso. He was going quite well, Fernando, in the Aston on the medium tyre, but he came out late on the medium, and he was actually the quickest of the medium runners when you looked at the overall times in FP1. That's because he did that time quite late in the session, having got the car reasonably sorted when everybody else, his nearest opposition on the medium, was running long runs by then, so shouldn't read too much into that. But the Aston Martin taking a little bit more time to dial in, but not looking too bad at all. Those are the overall times. You can see there the soft tyre runners: Daniel Ricciardo, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Yuki Tsunoda. So it's all a very close battle between those. You can see how close the times are, actually, particularly packed there into the midfield, bearing in mind, of course, a lot of medium tyre runners. One of the most interesting things I thought was at the end of the session, we take it for granted that they come around and do these standing starts, but one of the most interesting things I thought was the telemetry you can now get from the cars as they're doing those standing starts. Apropos nothing at all in terms of comparing one with another, but I thought it'd just be interesting to have a little bit of an insight into what a current 2024 Grand Prix car is all about. This is Charles Leclerc's standing start. And after that standing start, this is what Charles said: that was a very good start. Felt a bit lazy when I went on the power and released the clutch. So then I went too aggressively, because I wanted to check if everything was okay. So it was a pretty hard, fast acceleration run by Charles Leclerc. So let's have a look at the data then from that run and see what the current Ferrari SF24 can actually do off the line. So he pulls up and he's idling, just waiting for the slot to pull away at about 4,000 revs. And then when he's going to make the start, takes the revs up to 9,500, 10,000, around there. And then look at those acceleration times. That's kilometers an hour, of course. 0 to 100, 2.8, 0 to 120, 3.6, 0 to 200, 5.7. Eyes watering at this point. And we can see there also in the gears, there's top speed in each gear, 112. Look how close second and third are in terms of ratio there. Ferrari, like all teams, can select their own ratios, but they kind of locked in for the year. So very close ratios between second, third, 135, 141. Changing at about anything between 11 and 12 to and then 184 in fourth, 204 in fifth, and then he's braking for the first corner in sixth. So really impressive. Along those lines, and again, this is not by any means comparing car with car or tyre with tyre or fuel load with fuel load, but just taking two bits of data from turns 9 and 10 from FP1 this morning, just to see what Max Verstappen is all about to some extent, trying to get a glimpse into how he drives in a more specific way. I've talked a lot about turn 9 and 10 being a fabulous part of the Bahrain racetrack. I'd say that section of road is as good as anywhere in terms of the Formula One calendar these days, in terms of what it demands from a driver and the reward and the risk that you can take going in there. And the reward, of course, is a long straight after 10. And if you've got a really good run, inevitably that's going to enable you to get an inside run into turn 11 if you've got a guy in front of you. And equally, if you're on your own, it gives you a nice clean entry exit out of 10. Very, very important corner on the circuit with that long straight, and that's the great thing about that section of road. But it's preceded, turn 10, this tight left-hander, it's preceded by a very fast kink. So inevitably, with the tyres going off and with the camber of the road and braking as hard as they are, it's very, very difficult to have the car absolutely free of load as you're braking. P1. Inevitably, almost certainly, there's going to be load on the car. And the key there, of course, is to minimize the amount of load in the car when you're braking hard for turn 10. So it was interesting with the data we now have on screen to see the differences between Max Verstappen when he was going very quickly with a light fuel load on medium tyres, and Lando Norris, who was doing his quickest lap of the day on soft tyres. So going through turn 9, which is that left kink, Max is doing 252 kilometers an hour in 6th gear, and Lando 251. You wouldn't expect the soft tyre to be giving Lando any sort of advantage there, really. But as I saw it, Max at that point, in the middle of turn 9, just before they hit the brakes, is probably half a car's width to the right of Lando Norris, and went on the track exactly at the same time. But going through the apex there, Max is much further on the right than Lando, who's kind of taking a traditional apex line through 9. And as they go into turn 10, this is the interesting bit, I think. As they go into turn 10, they're both in the mid corner. They're about the same. But bear in mind, Lando's on soft tyres. And actually, middle of turn 10, Max is quicker. That's his minimum speed is 78 kilometers an hour. Lando Norris's is 75 kilometers an hour. And even more significantly, Max is in 3rd gear and Lando in 2nd gear. Now, again, you can't compare the two cars directly because they may well have different ratios, and second in the McLaren may not equal 2nd in the Red Bull. But bearing in mind, Max is on the harder tyre and in theory has less grip. I think it's amazing at that point that he's in 3rd gear and he's just letting the car settle in 3rd gear. And it's probably because, and we can only assume because there's no data to show this, and it's impossible even to see it from the onboards or indeed any of the camera locations they got, but it's probably because Max is getting a really efficient braking on the car because he's going through wider through 9, and then he's creating this area where he can get all 4 tyres absolutely square to the road when he's braking efficiently, and he's going in with virtually no load in the car at all, and he can just focus on extending the straight a little bit and then extending the straight coming out with no glitches whatsoever. Whereas Lando's going in and he's just looking to get in as quickly as he possibly can, going right down to 2nd gear to get the car stopped, and then he's accelerating hard. And we can see the benefit of the soft tyre 50 metres away from turn 10 as they're both now accelerating hard. You can see Max, no chance. He's on the medium tyre. He's doing 153 in 3rd gear, and at the same point, Lando's doing 174 in 4th. That's the advantage you have on the soft tyres. But this data's not there to show you the advantage on soft tyres. It's to show you how Max, even though he's on the medium tyre, is actually as quick as Lando in the middle of the corner and indeed going into the corner, slightly quicker, even though Lando's on the soft tyre.
Nice. So Max will be the race winner tomorrow? No, not tomorrow. On Saturday. On Friday he will qualify good.
I vår nya jackpot stuk.
Okay, got it. Begun. Yeah, I don't think there is anything more interesting. Quiet to be watching. But yeah. Oh shit. Need to pick them up. So yeah, a lot of Mercedes copium. We will see the true face tomorrow. And hopefully it will be a fun season to see Mercedes being bad again. And with that I mean, they can't win a race. But I will see tomorrow. And also we will see the sprint race in Formula 2 and Formula 3, and let's see how that goes. But